The Nigerian politician is a poor loser and eternal optimist who goes into elections totally convinced that based on certain factors he has covered, there is no way he can lose elections. Such factors involve a lot of funding godfathers, buying forms from the political platform he is using, settling party members to win their support, funding the electorate. In other words, vote buying. Funding supporters who often take it upon themselves to do underhand things to ensure their candidate emerges. Election in Nigeria are a very expensive business. No wonder the politician cannot process the thought of losing because what he has invested into the race goes down the drain with his loss. But there can only be one winner in any contested election. When it does not fall the way of a particular candidate, most often than not, the courts are the avenue where the politicians seeks his lost mandates. Cases of post-election petitions and substantial court determinations of election outcome in the Federal Republic of Nigeria has become the norm. Since 1999, Nigeria has organized over 4 cycles of national elections. The courts find themselves having to decide a large number of post-election petitions, which continues to increase with every election year. It raises a poignant question. Are the needs of the electorate really served by these frequent court interventions? Do these court interventions give credibility to the election process, or are they now impacting negatively on the election process? We'll take a look at this issue on this edition of Politics on Sunday. I am Femi Akonde. Politics of election dispute. Quite an interesting topic we have here today. And to put all of this into proper perspective, we have Daniel Bwala, legal practitioner and member of the Honorable Society of Lincolns in London. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, let's look at the issue in Cross Rivers North Senatorial District now. As a legal practitioner, from your own interpretation of the law, I believe you have been following this issue and you are quite familiar with it. Who is the lawful representative of Cross River North in the Senate?
I think it's Senator Ode. And let me, in giving perspective, sometimes you either start with the premise and go to the conclusion, or you start from the conclusion and come back to the premise. Let's start
from the premise.
I prefer to start with the conclusion because
your choice.
Senator Mr. Jaribe has been basking in the euphoria of what he calls the judgment of the Supreme Court, which is a conclusion, to parade it and give the impression to the world that Supreme Court declared him as the authentic candidate and that Supreme Court has dismissed the Senator Ode's appeal. Yeah. That is a wrong notion, and that's a wrong impression. And as a matter of fact, it's a wrong message he's sending. Now, what happened in the Supreme Court was, and I will come to the premise later, Mr. or Senator Ode filed an appeal to the Supreme Court from the Court of Appeal, to which he was not joined. He sought the leave of court, and when he was joined, he filed a notice of appeal to the Supreme Court, and the records were transmitted. So when they now came for the hearing of the appeal, and what was the appeal about? Challenging the decision of the Court of Appeal that affirmed the decision of the High Court of FCT, declaring that Mr. Jaribe was the rightful candidate and he should be accorded the privileges of a political party. We'll come back to whether or not the court has jurisdiction in the first place. So this was what he brought to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court, when they came, Jaribe now raised a preliminary objection to the hearing of the appeal, and he said, there is no way this court can proceed to hear the appeal because a party was not served. And the Supreme Court looked at its rules, relevant laws, decisions of court, to then hold that the service of the process of a court, address for service, actually that's a real something. The address for service is fundamental, and that where the rules provide that you must serve a party personally, and you fail to put the address for service, thereby denying that party the opportunity to have this document, there is no way we will proceed to hear the appeal because you could not put the address for service, as it were. So the Supreme Court struck out the appeal only on the ground for want of address of service. They did not delve into the substance of the appeal.
The court did not nullify the representation of Senator
No, they did not.
Ode.
They did not, because they, when a matter comes to court, the first thing is to, especially objection preliminary, you have to decide one way or the other before you proceed. And the law is that if you proceed to hear the appeal without determining the preliminary objection, assuming the appeal succeeds, the objection succeeds, you see, it has now become a contradictory judgment. You have given judgment to somebody that the objection has hit him right on the forehead. So anytime an issue of objection is raised in the court, challenging the jurisdiction of the court, it must be determined one way or the other. And that was what the Supreme Court did. So in a nutshell, as far as the Supreme Court judgment is concerned, the Supreme Court did not invalidate the candidacy, propriety or otherwise, and in fact the winning streak of Senator Ode. Supreme Court dismissed the appeal on the ground of want of address for service.
That should be
So if you get that,
filed
exactly.
at the Court of Appeal.
So having done that and having established that there is no judgment of the Supreme Court that gave Jaribe any form of candidacy, authority, or even made that declaration, that certificate be issued to him.
But there's a judgment of the Court of Appeal.
So here is now, it is taking us back to the premise. So the premise was that there was a primaries. And in that primaries of PDP, senatorial district, right? Senator Ode won the primaries. But don't forget, as soon as he won the primary, he now proceeded to do what is required by the Electoral Act in terms of documentation, filing in the INEC. During this period, the Jaribe instituted multiple actions in court, all in a bid. In the two suits that he filed, he lost. Because the high courts, both in Calabar and Port Harcourt, reached a verdict that he could not succeed. Having lost that, what did he do? He went to Court of Appeal. He lost the same in the Court of Appeal. So there is no fulcrum, nothing to stand on. Even INEC, when INEC was initially ordered to put his name, so to speak, or ordered that the court ordered that his name could not be presented.
Yeah, so published as the candidate.
He later got it vacated, and he was cleared. Yeah. And the party proceeded with him. INEC published his name in consistency with the provisions of the Electoral Act. So he now became the rightful and lawful candidate of the political party PDP to participate in that election. He observed the procedure. Then at the election, he defeated his rival, Joe Agi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who is from APC, by a wide margin. Consequent on that, he now proceeded to be sworn in as a Senator of the Federal Republic. You can see from the beginning, right up to when he got sworn in, he complied with the provisions of the Electoral Act. On the other hand, Jaribe did not comply with the provisions of the Electoral Act to have the eligibility of being declared as a winner, because the Electoral Act says for somebody to be declared a winner, he must have participated in all the stages of election. The stages of election connotes, one, the primaries of the party, number two, the election proper. So while he participated in the primary where he lost, he did not participate in the election.
But as it stands today, it appears as if two of them have a certificate of return issued by INEC. So are we then saying that what Jaribe has is null and void?
Let me lay the foundation to the certificate. Where there are two competing equities, the first in time prevails. Where there are two competing titles, the first in time prevails. Where there are two competing certificates, the first is presumed to be genuine. Now, he was issued the certificate of return, having won the election.
That's
right?
Senator Ode.
Senator Ode. Senator Jaribe did not participate in the election that will warrant the certificate. He went to seek for an order of court to give him the certificate. Now, look at, I started by laying the foundation that if you do not participate in all the stages, you cannot be declared a winner, you cannot be issued the certificate, right? He did not participate in the main election. What was the fulcrum and the basis on which you declare him as the rightful candidate? When the party he was up against was not joined in the matter. You see, can an order bind a party that is not joined? The law is about justice. And that is why in the principles of fair hearing and natural justice, it is said there is no way the court will arrive at a just determination of a matter if the order will affect somebody that person will have to necessarily be enjoined so that the court will get the opportunity to hear your own version, then arrive at that decision. That is his first legal conundrum. Having obtained that order, that fellow now proceeded to the Court of Appeal to appeal against that decision. Now, when he went to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal equally sustained the decision of the High Court to say, you do not have a local standard to come before us because you did not participate in the primaries. The court, both the High Court in FCT and the Court of Appeal, never said INEC issue him with certificate. It says accord him the privileges
of a political party.
Of a political candidate of a political party. So that falls even on PDP. And PDP said, we don't even know him. He's not part of us. He failed in the primaries. That is one. Then number two, having not expressly and specifically mentioned that certificate be issued, INEC did not have any basis to issue that certificate. What INEC would have done in the circumstance would have been to approach the court and seek clarification. What is the consequence of this order? Because the act is clear. If you are going to declare a candidate where there is an existing certificate, you must invalidate that certificate that existed because you cannot have two titles. When you have invalidated, so you will say that Ode is not the candidate of the party. Therefore, the certificate issued to Ode is invalid. So now there is a level playing field for a new person. Then you now say the rightful candidate of the party is Jaribe. Then the third one, which is a consequential order, is that INEC is mandated to issue him with certificate of return. You must say that specifically. You must say that expressly. So having not gotten that, INEC hurriedly, in error, and over time in Nigeria we have seen so many times INEC out of fear, they will just say, Moku, just give. Let them go to court, whatever court says, then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, the Center for Credible Leadership, a civil society group, some weeks ago in a press statement said that the interference of courts in Nigeria's election process has put the Electoral Commission, INEC, in a difficult position to assert its authority and independence. Do you see that? Because it appears as if INEC seems to be obeying all court judgments, even if they are contradictory.
There was a time, once an order comes, INEC acts on it. Then later, the court would now say that order issued by INEC was wrong, and then issue again. So it creates administrative problem for INEC. But where I blame INEC in this case is that INEC ought to have known these principles I've talked to you about. One, anybody who has not participated in all the stages of election cannot win an election, cannot be declared the winner of an election, cannot benefit from a judgment, or cannot benefit from the outcome of an election. And number two, any judgment paraded by any party to which the other party has not been in notice and has not been a part of, you know that that judgment is inchoate. That, in other words, that judgment needs clarification by the court. You cannot go ahead and enforce that. It will rob of, it is like a slap on the face of natural justice. The entire gamut of legal profession and the justice of a matter is that put the other party on notice. Over time in our practice, sometimes even when you bring application for ex parte, that the affidavit in support is quite obvious that there is an imminent danger for which you want the court to intervene. We have had them over time saying, look, put the other party on notice. I want them to come and explain why I should not give you that order. Because the court will not want to give an order and then tomorrow when the person brings his version, and then it becomes a different thing. And that's exactly what happened. Jaribe misled the court and obtained that, misled the court, but much more than that, he misled INEC.
The narrative in the public domain now is that Senator Steve Ode is illegally occupying that seat representing Cross River North. And from what you have explained from the legal perspective now, the question is, who has that onus, that responsibility to unbundle all of these and put things in proper perspective to say, no, this is the person who should rightfully represent the people of Cross River North Senatorial District? Is it INEC? Is it the courts? Or is it the Senate?
No, at this point, no, the Senate has performed its constitutional duty, having been presented with certificate of return and they sworn in it. Senator Ode has performed his own responsibility of winning the primaries, meeting the requirement of INEC in terms of documentation, running the election winning, and now even defending himself in the court of law against a matter for which he was not even joined in the first place. The person who is still in a confused state is who? Is Jaribe. But the question I will ask you is, because when you want to go to court, the question you must answer is, are you within the time prescribed by law to bring a matter? Because you see, you cannot just wake up anybody any day and go to court. Are you within the time? He's obviously outside
Out
of
of
the time.
time.
In whichever way you look at it. If the judgment wants you to get the certificate, they have done that in Peter. You remember Andy Uba? During his time, when the Supreme Court made express decision, he said, he's ordered to vacate the place and the other person should be sworn in. Courts have never fallen short of that. You remember even in Imo, in the case of the Supreme Court, in the case of Opus Odema, they made that specific order. You see, because lives of the people and destiny of a society is at stake. And oftentimes, because the court is not a Father Christmas, if they deal with a matter, like in the case of the Supreme Court, they only dismiss the preliminary objection. Since the appeal is not determined, there is no way you can come into it and say this is the rightful candidate, this way swear him in or give him certificate of return. That is exactly what has happened. He has not gotten the judgment that is consistent with the provisions of the law and the Electoral Act that will warrant the issuance of certificate to him.
All right, Daniel Bwala, I'll take a quick break at this point, and after the break, we'll continue the conversation. Do join us again. Well, welcome back. Our conversation has been with Daniel Bwala, a legal practitioner and member of the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn in London. Yes, let's continue our discussion now. You know, a lot of people are beginning to say that the Senate President appears to be in favor of Senator Ode because he has refused to honor the certificate of return that Mr. Jaribe is holding. What's your own take on that?
That is, what if it is the British people, they will say that is dumb, or they will say that's a foolish conclusion. Why? Because the Senate President is a member of APC, and this is a dispute arising from members of PDP. So ordinarily, he should not have even given certificate to anybody and wait for the APC candidate, if you are looking at it from the partisan point of view.
Maybe he's getting good legal counsel.
The idea is, so that's where I'm driving to, is that every public office holder should have legal department or legal advisors. And the Senate of the Federal Republic has a rich legal department, apart from them having their personal legal advisors. And a case of this magnitude is not what he would treat lightly. Before he swore in this Senator Ode, he must have considered, based on the advice given to him by his lawyers, the holistic of the matter, the entire case, substantive of the case, and arrive at the conclusion that the winner of that election was Ode, based on the judgments of court. Especially, no court in the land said certificates should be issued to the party, to Jaribe. Where the court has not authorized the issuance of a certificate, it does not behoove INEC to interpret outside of what the court has not said. You know, in the principles of law we have where it says the golden rule is where the wordings are clear and unambiguous. It does not give room for you to interpret it whichever way you like. You give it its ordinary meaning, which is that if they say accord him the privileges, a lot of people in a political party, when they are accorded the privilege, it can include putting his membership. If you want to take disciplinary action against him, you can decide to, okay, we'll not take disciplinary action. But it is an order in quid, because assuming without considering that what court meant was, according to the privilege, is that, okay, we want you to exercise discretion to issue certificate. INEC must be advised that anybody who has not participated in the entire stages of election cannot be declared a winner. And we have seen that it's not that it's starting now. We've seen that all over the cases throughout, I think since 2011 or so. If you have not participated in all the stages, in those days, you don't have to participate in all the stages. In fact, that's where the ambush comes. All I need to do is to create a kind of scenario in the primaries, and then I stay. You go, spend your money, do election, win the person, because obviously I'm afraid of winning the other candidate in the party. When you have concluded everything, then I will go to court and say, I should have been the rightful candidate. And if the court so believe me, then the court will say, I should have been the winner of that election, and since you won, it is a party that won, I should not be sworn in. Those days are far behind us. The Electoral Act is that for somebody to be declared a winner, he must have participated in all the stages. Ask Jaribe, did he participate in the main election of PDP versus the other? And has PDP fielded two candidates? PDP said they fielded Senator Ode as a candidate of a political party. And it is the political party that sponsors a candidate. Sure. So even the PDP that you are thinking will be with you, they are not with you. INEC is not with you. and then Senator Ode defeated you in the election. How can you go and
That's
interpret
at the primary election.
At the primary. How can you interpret according the privilege of a political party to mean you should be issued with the certificate of return? In fact, I have this belief that the reason the court was not emphatic to say issue him with the certificate of return is because the court, being the fountain of justice, must have also taken into cognizance one fact that if you have not participated in all the stages of election, you cannot be declared.
And it's clear that he did not participate.
He did not participate in all the stages.
Yes, and it is a PDP matter within the People's Democratic Party now. And yes, in Cross River State, it appears even the members of the People's Democratic Party in Cross River State are with Senator Ode. But we are again hearing that there might be external interference in the matter. That is what probably is pushing Senator Jaribe or urging him or spurring him to go ahead and challenge Senator Ode's candidacy.
Quite frankly, in this my little life and in my practice, I have seen how politicians oftentimes, when they fail to gain the mandate of the people, they go through the back door, through the means of court. And usually they rely on technicalities, which the court in the past was, I wouldn't use the word accomplished, but the court was not very, very steadfast in looking at that. But for a long time, Supreme Court made the point clear. And all the courts in the land are subject to the Supreme Court. And they said technicality will no longer determine how we adjudicate. We will look at substantial justice. And that is what brought me to the point I told you, that how can you give a verdict against a party who was not joined, for you to even hear him? Because a judgment is a judgment when it is a finding of court having evaluated the entirety of the case of people. And if the other party, you want to give a verdict against the other party, then the court would have ordered that they should join this other party so that the court once and for all will determine the matter. But that is not what happened. And the court only said accord him the privileges. The court never said issue him with the certificate of return.
So where do we go from here finally? Because of course the constituents, people in Cross River North Senatorial District are also watching and are concerned and would want to see a resolution of this matter as soon as possible. As
far as I know, since it is a party affairs, you see, if it is a case of APC and PDP, then the idea would be that the situation is bringing tension, people are confused as to who was the right candidate. Here is an inter-party affairs. So it is the PDP as a political party that will communicate through their various organs in the state that, look, this is the rightful candidate, as was decided, as was sworn in, as he is in the constituency. Then the members can ventilate their agreement. So it has now gone back to party affairs. But as far as this is concerned, with respect to the party affairs, Senator Ode has come out clean and has won an election against another political party. So it would be unjust to me, quite frankly. I'm not even a member of PDP, but it would be unjust when somebody has emerged victoriously and won the election, then this other fellow in that political party who did not get, because of, again, what you are saying, external influence, to begin to do that. And it's not new. Have you not noticed sometimes gladiators in politics will just be a clock to someone? They just keep him busy so that he does not perform throughout his time in the Senate. It is never intended that a winner will come out of any process outside of that. That is the fulcrum and the ultimate decider. Now, he won the primaries with a margin of over 400% against Jaribe. He went to that election where he also won with a wide margin. That is the wish, the popular wish of the people from that senatorial district. And he was sworn in by the Senate of the Federal Republic. Do you think the Senate is dumb to have just, received him and sworn him in? And the Senate leadership, the Senate president and deputy Senate president are APC members. It is the governing party is APC, swearing in a PDP candidate when we know that there is an APC candidate that participated in that election. Let us just lay down this childish thing. I believe that PDP should have its, get its acts right in that state. You understand? Principal officers should call Jaribe to order. There is nowhere to go now. Where does he start? I don't know whether I get the point. Where does he start in terms of saying he wants to get his mandate? No court of the land said issue certificate. Okay, if he says, okay, now I want to go back and seek interpretation, you must also be guided by the time limit as required, whether in pre-election matters and you've not participated in the main election to say you're going to the tribunal. What is alive now is the tribunal matter, which is a different issue.
So that means there's nothing stopping Senator Stephen Ode from carrying out his duties as a Senator of the Federal Republic and representing the people of Cross River.
In my humble opinion, on the basis of the judgments of court and what transpired in court, in my opinion, yes, there's nothing stopping.
All right, Daniel Bwala, legal practitioner and member of the Honorable Society of Lincolns in London. Thank you very much for your time on the program.
My pleasure as always. I appreciate it.
It is obvious that a balance must be struck, which allows the Independent National Electoral Commission more leverage in determining electoral matters. Should this come through an amendment of the Electoral Act? But also is the fact that the Nigerian politician must change his win-at-all-cost disposition. This can only happen if measures are put in place to ensure vying for an elective position is not as expensive as it presently is. Furthermore, the elective position should be made less financially attractive so that in the end, only those with a genuine desire to serve are brought in as elected public officers. Well, those are my few thoughts on the matter. Let's get on another issue of national discourse next week. I am Femi Akonde.